What's going on? It's Jason Heath, and today we are digging into my favorite 2-octave scale for beginners on the bass. All right, I gotta quit fooling around. In this video, we're going to cover a few different ways to approach the G major scale: an easier fingering, a more challenging but useful fingering, an arpeggio fingering, and all of these are in a PDF in the description below you can download, and it's actually all 12 major 2-octave scales. But before we get into that, here's just a few thoughts on scale practice in general, because it's such a tricky subject. You've probably heard that you need to practice your scales. That is a given no matter what instrument you play, but how to practice the scales is such a tricky question. People just kind of flippantly say, practice your scales and leave it at that, but there's so much to it. And for me, the key is balancing consistency with variety. So here's what I do. I take a key for the week. So I'm talking about G major in this video. That's what I'm doing this week exclusively, G major. Now, within G major, I do all sorts of things. I practice them very slowly with a drone. I practice them with a metronome, repeated notes off the string to develop some spiccato. I practice them slurred. I practice them with dynamics. I practice them with vibrato. I practice broken exercises, doing thirds and such. I'll do double stops. And I'm always trying to turn my practicing into a puzzle. The more that I think of practicing as a game, the better I do. If I don't do that, my brain goes on autopilot and I just don't get as much done. So that is the fundamental concept for me in terms of practicing your scales. Balance that consistency, so I'm not just all over the place, totally scattered, with variety, so I'm not getting bored. Okay, option one, this is the classic G major 2-octave fingering. I learned this early on in my bass playing career, and I use it all the time. I still practice it all the time, even though there are many other ways to finger this scale. This fingering is great because it uses all the open strings. You just go right across the bass, you get to the G string, and then you just go up the G string. And there are many ways to climb the G string, but this is, to me, the classic way to go up. It's such an easy pattern to remember, too. For me, I do open G, and then I do 1-4, 1-4, 1-4, 3. So I have paranotes, 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 and 3. Just like we covered in the C major scale, you want to have a connection between each one of these positions. So you're here, and then you just kind of make the connection, let the fingers bump off the old fingers, and slide up to the new position. Now, you can do many things for these top notes right here. You could do 1, 3, 4. You could do 1, 3, 3. You could do 1, 2, 3 even. You could do thumb 2, 3. I just like to think of those 3 notes as being in a group. And for me, the easiest way to do it is 1, 4, and then open the hand and do 3. You could easily do 1, 3, and then just touch that harmonic with the 4th finger. Now, a lot of people ask me, should I do that G harmonic? And my answer is, heck yes. Be able to do it closed too, but harmonics are great, and especially as you're starting to learn these scales, they're a nice foundation point that you can build everything else off of. Option 2 is admittedly more challenging, and I was road testing these fingerings with some students and amused at watching them try to get that thumb going when they're not expecting in a low thumb position. So this is definitely more of an intermediate or maybe intermediate to advanced fingering, but I'm trying to follow that concept that I was talking about in the C major video with grouping 2 notes, 2 notes, 2 notes, 3 notes, 3 notes, 3 notes. So we could go like this. It's just easy to remember. 2 notes, 2 notes, 2 notes. It's also a really easy pattern to transfer to other points of the bass. We could do 2 notes, 2 notes, 2 notes. Playing them in different spots, but the concept's the same. Then the 3 notes, we could do that in many places. We could do here, here, and then we could go. That would be probably an easier fingering. Maybe I should have put that one down. But I intentionally put this thumb one here just to introduce you. My thought is if you're doing 2 octave scales, you're going to be wanting to get around thumb position, and you're wanting to be getting around lower thumb position. Now, this is a little bit of a challenging topic, and I did a review of a great book called The Thumb Transition Zone. I'll link up to it in the card here. It's by Chris Koski, a wonderful bassist and teacher, and I just love the way she approaches this area. This is this sort of gray zone on the bass where we might use the thumb, we might use 4 fingers, and we want to be prepared. So if you want to dive more into that concept, check out that other video. But this fingering right here, the beauty of it, once you get here, is it's quite easy to move around and play notes quickly, and it's just, once you get here, it's not that awkward. But A, it's a little awkward even once you're familiar, and B, you're probably not as familiar with that if you're beginner, intermediate on the bass, and even advanced players. I guess I'll label myself advanced, maybe I'm not, but we'll see. But getting that thumb in the right spot, if I'm not expecting it, I really have to think about it. And the biggest challenge is going from 4 to thumb. What I do is I have 4 here, I bump, 3, 2, 1, thumb, and then I shift. So really slow motion, I would go to get to that note. Reverse going down, and then so on and so forth. The arpeggio fingering. It's an arpeggio fingering. I feel like I always do bad arpeggio fingerings, but I'm kind of confident that this one works well, especially for beginners or intermediates, because it takes advantage of the open strings. You start here, play G and B. Then, as soon as you play D, you move that left hand up. You want to get to the neck block as quickly as possible, and vice versa when you're going down. My saying is you always want to get your shifting done as early as possible. That's a general good rule of thumb. You always want to have more notes available to you quicker. That's maybe a weird analogy. Anyway, I don't know. So I'm playing here, G, B, D. I move the hand. B, D, G. Back down. Open G, I move the hand. And these notes right here, 4 for B, 1 for D, 3 for G. I am doing a pivot motion to get there. So I'm playing 4, 1, open the hand for 3. That works well for my hand on my bass with my strings at a nice height. It may not work so well for you, or it may not work so well for a student depending on what they're playing on. Bass has come a long way in the last few decades, but there's still a lot of weird gear floating around out there, so you may have to tailor it according to your needs or your students' needs. But I love that fingering. If you can get it, it's great because it groups these 3 notes into a position. And the more we can group things into a position or a region on the bass, the better off we're going to be. If I could offer one bit of advice about practicing any of this stuff, it's take your time and focus on tone. I see so many people trying to get through material and just playing with tone that is just not good. And if you get accustomed to not playing with good tone, you can almost let your brain turn off and not even think about good tone. They're so consumed with notes and everything, but who cares what you play if you can't sound good doing it? Isn't that why we go into music, after all, to make a beautiful sound? Even if it's just one note, even if it's just one octave, even if it's just 2 notes in a position, make a beautiful sound, make something that you'd be proud of, and that's my best advice for practicing technique. G major is a great way to get into 2-octave scales though. You're not heading into thumb position, you're just touching that G octave. So dip your toes in the water and I hope you enjoy.